This disclaimer will explain why I have been very careful about using trademarked brand names only for educational purposes and avoided using photographs that I didn't take. Perhaps your saw has gone out of adjustment. Most likely it has never truly been in adjustment. The next slide has some comments that might ring true to you. It is my wish that these videos will help you eliminate problems with your saw, improve your cuts, and extend your blade life. So, maybe your cut quality has declined, or the blade will not stay on the saw anymore, which is a very frustrating thing. The logical thing is to think that a simple tweak will set the saw straight again. This logic fails because, without making adjustments in the correct order, you will very likely make things worse. Don't despair. You have come to the right place. The vertical cutting plane is the path that the blade takes through the stock and into the table. The horizontal cutting plane is the angle of the blade to the miter jaw, usually perpendicular. If we were to define a square cut, it would be that the resulting surface is a two-dimensional plane that is perpendicular to the table base of the saw and perpendicular to the miter jaw of the vise when the miter jaw is set perpendicular to the blade. Setting the miter jaw perpendicular to the blade or at any other reasonable angle is easy. However, there are three little problems with accomplishing the vertically square cut. For one thing, these saws are not manufactured with accuracy in mind. Secondly, the cut will deviate from vertical when the saw blade is not perfectly perpendicular to the table surface. And finally, wear and damage to the blade due to mistreatment will interfere with equal progress by each row of teeth. These videos offer all the information to overcome these three challenges. These preliminary adjustments and minor modifications should only be necessary once for the life of your saw. Here is a picture of most of the tools you may see used in these videos. The tool in the upper left is a simple piece of 1/8 inch flat bar that I consider the quintessential tool. You will want to make something similar. The tool below it is just a little segment of blade. We are going to be working with all of these pieces. There will be detailed instructions, but study the way the parts go together here for a minute or two. In the lower left of the slide is a photo of a correctly adjusted saw. You should note the relationship of the top of the castings. This diagram depicts how we want to standardize the bearing pivots. You can leave the bearings on if you want, as long as you can equalize X and Y. If you have them removed, it is easier to place the bearing end on a flat surface and measure down from the top of the nut with the depth rod on your calipers. If you have a lathe, you don't need to measure them at all. The reason that they are different is that the eccentric one and the non-eccentric one are not consistently made. I trim them on the lathe by slightly shortening the shortest one, as shown in the clip of turning the eccentric one, and then chucking the other three with the compound lock to the same length. You can use a file or whatever, as long as the longest measured point is close on each of the pairs. That will work just as well. Read this paragraph until it makes sense. By setting the bearings too close to each other, you can cause the blade to appear to be bent. I don't think it's necessary to replace any of this hardware, and that's why it's not in the hardware upgrading video. However, I had some grade 8 bolts laying around, so as you can see here when I reassemble it, that's what goes back in. This clearance varies between saws, so you'll have to determine how much shim stock to use. This one worked out perfectly with 10/1000ths. I made the pocket a little large for the axle, but it'll be okay. This is a fairly normal amount of backlash. Now what I'm going to do here is secure the pulley up against the snap ring that stops it on the axle shaft or on the gear shaft. And I'm going to use a combination of some grease and some Loctite in order to be able to tighten it more and to lock it into place. This is a primary place to look if you start throwing blades. I've even seen the shaft key fall out. Thank you for watching the Adjustments Part 1 video. If you have made the preliminary adjustments in Part 1, you are now ready to move on to the meat of the adjustments. Adjustments Part 2 will take us into some of the adjustments that this video has prepared us for.